Hey everyone, Farid here from the Rational Farid. Quick question. What if I told you some of the most famous miracles in the Bible aren't about divine power at all, but about something far more human? Something sneaky? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving into one of them. A story from the Gospel of John, the so-called miracle at Siloam. You think you know it? A blind man, Jesus, a healing? Think again. What if this particular miracle wasn't about saving a soul, but about taking down an entire religion? Seriously, we're about to expose how this dramatic tale was meticulously crafted, not as a historical event, but as a direct theological attack on Judaism itself. Get ready to see the real agenda behind the miracle, and trust me, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, to truly understand John's agenda in this story, we first need to appreciate the stage on which this supposed miracle unfolds. The Pool of Siloam. And trust me, this wasn't just any old puddle. To sketch this in for you, imagine Old Jerusalem. Running south from the famous Temple Mount, there's this spur of high ground called the Ophel Ridge, roughly the size of a couple of football pitches. What made this place so incredibly special, historically and religiously? A natural spring, later called the Gihon, that rises in a cave right within that ridge. This spring was so vital, so precious, that the very first people ever to settle the area, the Bronze Age Canaanites, built their initial small town right there on this ridge, all because of that water source. Fast forward a bit in the biblical narrative, and this is the town that's supposedly captured by the Israelites and becomes the famous city of David. Then, in the 7th century BC, a Jewish king, Hezekiah, commissioned an incredible feat of engineering, a tunnel that meanders for about 1,500 feet right under that ridge. The whole point? To carry the water of the Gihon Springs safely, protecting this absolutely vital water source, which eventually terminates right here in the Pool of Siloam. This wasn't just drinking water, it was sacred. So important, in fact, that it actually gave rise to a rain festival among the original Canaanites, which the Jews later adapted and restyled as the hugely significant Feast of Tabernacles. During this festival, priests would carry a living water of Siloam all the way up to the Temple Mount itself. They'd sprinkle it on their altars, parade about with palm fronds, and appeal to God for rain in the coming year. So, think about it. The waters of Siloam and the Feast of Tabernacles were absolutely at the heart of Judaism. They were central to its identity, its rituals, its very connection to what they believed was divine provision. And that is precisely why the Gospel of John decides Jesus just had to upstage this tradition with a mighty miracle from his God-man. Okay, so we've set the stage. Now, let's actually look at the miracle itself, as presented in John's Gospel. We're introduced to a man who's been blind from birth. And true to the ancient mindset, Jesus' disciples immediately jump to the question of sin. Who sinned? This man or his parents, that he was born blind? This was a common belief back then. Disease was seen as direct punishment for sin. But here's where John's narrative gets, well, weird. Jesus' answer isn't what you'd expect from a compassionate healer. He says, and I quote, "Neither. This happens so that the works of God might be displayed in him." Let that sink in. The man was born blind specifically so Jesus could show up one day and perform a miracle. It essentially means this guy suffered his entire life just to be a prop in Jesus' divine marketing campaign. Not exactly the loving savior image, is it? It's a chilling reminder of the cold transactional nature often hidden beneath the surface of these biblical tales. And then there's the method of healing. This isn't a gentle touch like we see in some other gospel accounts of Jesus curing blindness. Oh no. John's Jesus goes for the truly bizarre. He spits on the ground, makes mud with his spit, and puts this muddy paste on the man's eyes. Think about that for a second. Mud and spit. But here's the kicker. That doesn't cure him. That's not the actual miracle moment. After applying this rather unhygienic concoction, Jesus then sends the man off to the Pool of Siloam and tells him to wash. And only after the man washes the mud and spit away at Siloam does he finally regain his sight. Now, why all this elaborate performance? It's all about context and symbolism. Remember that living water we talked about, central to the Jewish Feast of Tabernacles and flowing from Siloam? John's Jesus conveniently and strategically also proclaims himself to be the source of living water, saying things like, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink." It's no accident this miracle of restoring sight happens through the very waters that are so central to Judaism, right at the time of their major festival celebrating those waters. It's a blatant narrative move to establish Jesus as the new and superior source of spiritual life, directly superseding the deeply ingrained traditions of Judaism. So, after breaking down the details, what are we really to make of this whole bizarre, theatrical performance at Siloam? Here's where the blatant anti-Judaic subtext of John's Gospel screams out. The first, most undeniable clue is the timing. This miracle doesn't just happen on any random day. It takes place both on a Sabbath, a day sacred to Jewish law, which Jesus is conveniently breaking, and, crucially, during the Feast of Tabernacles. Remember that huge, central Jewish festival celebrating the living water of Siloam? This isn't just a coincidence, folks. This is a deliberately chosen stage for a theological takedown. Now let's talk about the blind man himself. In this narrative, he isn't just a randomly afflicted individual. He is a symbolic Jew. He's portrayed as blind from birth, not due to personal sin, as Jesus conveniently clarifies, but blind from birth to the divine truth that John's Jesus represents. He represents the Jewish people, who, in John's eyes, are unable to see the light of Christianity. And what's the path to sight? It's by obeying Jesus, by going to the Pool of Siloam and washing away that muddy concoction. This isn't just a physical cleansing. This is a powerful, calculated metaphor. By performing this act of obedience, the symbolic Jew sees the light, meaning they convert to Christianity. They abandon their traditional practices, and as John's Jesus claims, they imbibe the living waters of Christ, replacing the sacred waters of their own tradition. This entire setup, from the timing to the method, is a meticulously crafted allegory. It's John making an incredibly aggressive theological statement. Judaism is fundamentally blind, unable to perceive true spiritual insight. But Jesus has come to open their eyes if they abandon their old ways and embrace Him. It's a full-on theological power play, designed to undermine the parent faith and assert the superiority of the burgeoning Christian movement. It's not subtle, and once you recognize it, it's impossible to ignore. Now, you might think the story ends there, right? Blind man sees, everyone celebrates? Nope. John goes the whole 9 yards to drive home his theological point, and it gets pretty hostile. The narrative immediately pivots to the reactions of the surrounding community, and it's not a unified chorus of praise. First, you have the unbelieving Jews who straight up doubt the miracle, questioning how a man born blind could suddenly see. Then, the Pharisees, conveniently and quite suspiciously, are divided amongst themselves. Some say Jesus is a sinner for healing on the Sabbath, others are hesitant. This division paints a picture of internal discord within Judaism, suggesting it's inherently fractured and unable to recognize divine truth. And then there's the truly telling detail. The blind man's own parents fear the Jews. This little phrase, tucked into the text, is a crucial window into the early Christian community's perceived conflict with the established Jewish authorities. It highlights the very real pressure and even persecution faced by those who might convert to this new heresy. But what about the man himself? The one who was cured? Does he just go off and live his life? Of course not. John molds him into the ideal convert. He doesn't just see, he becomes a full-blown disciple of Jesus, boldly defending him against the skeptical Jews and even calling on others to believe. And the climax? The man, for his newfound belief and defiance is then cast out, presumably from the synagogue, from his community. In this entire supposed miracle, we see the complete blueprint of the early Christian mission and its blatant hostility towards Judaism. It's a story designed to battle for converts, providing them with a powerful example of recovering sight, or as we've decoded, seeing the truth of Christianity. It's all wrapped up in a dramatic tale of a mighty deed, but its real purpose is didactic, a piece of pure propaganda, engineered to justify Christian superiority and lambaste Judaism as blind, stubborn, and ultimately rejecting God's true messenger. It's a calculated, deliberate narrative attack. So when we pull back all the layers on the miracle at Siloam, what are we actually looking at? Not a divinely orchestrated healing, not a verifiable historical event. What we've meticulously uncovered is a meticulously crafted piece of anti-Judaic polemic. This story, found only in John's Gospel, is designed with a singular, clear purpose: to establish Christian dominance by portraying Judaism as blind, spiritually ignorant, and desperately in need of seeing the light that only Jesus can provide. Its power isn't in historical veracity. It's in its ideological purpose, a persuasive tool to negate the parrot faith and promote the nascent Christian movement. It's a story, pure and simple, and one designed to push a very specific agenda. So the next time you hear about a biblical miracle, remember to ask, is this truly an account of divine intervention? Or is it a carefully constructed narrative serving a deeper, more human agenda? Think about that. If this breakdown opened your eyes to something new, hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I always love hearing new perspectives. And of course, for more deconstructions of religious claims and a healthy dose of rational inquiry, make sure you're subscribed to the Rational Farid. Until next time, keep thinking rationally.